So, welcome, Roger.
Glenn, how are you today?
Doing really well. And, I'm really excited about something that we can talk about today, and it has to do with a big expansion possibility for the Circle of Life coaching. And it's something that has been, as you know, for some time, I have been, you know, going back and forth from India and other countries and all that stuff. So I've always wondered about what your thoughts were about going beyond the shores of United States and expanding this whole opportunity to people
Sure.
elsewhere.
Well, what we know for sure, and if we didn't know it 2 or 3 years ago, we definitely know it now, is that everybody in the world is eligible and probably needs to reconsider their life trajectory. The entire human race has experienced a kind of trauma. Every company, every athletic team, every school system, every healthcare system, every military base, every team of pilots for airlines, just absolutely every person in the world can really do well with a reimagining of their personal lives in a more, shall we say, holistic context. And we call the circle of life sometimes holistic life planning. And so this is not something that's limited to the United States. We have trained coaches. We've been training coaches for over 20 years, actually. And we've trained coaches from numerous other countries. But with our partnership with yourself, it really becomes so logical to begin to communicate with people in Asia. And of course, we're already getting very positive responses from people in Asia and in other, in Europe. And for some reason, South Africa keeps coming to mind for me. It's a very cutting edge sort of community. Dubai happens to be like, the absolute sort of a rising new center of the world. And Singapore, one of the largest, um, and Hong Kong and Shanghai and Beijing and all the places in between, Australia, New Zealand. These are all communities where uh, bosses or people who run companies are intent on supporting people and having more energy and resting better, being more well, being sick less, being more resilient, managing stress, having work-life balance. And so all of these trends that have been rising since the 1970s even are really peaking right now. And things like wellness and self-efficacy and resiliency and empowerment and self-reliance. These are all superpower words that are expressive of what is happening in all the countries of the world. And so I'm excited about our expansion to other countries. And I wonder, like, what are some of your thoughts about this whole idea of how the circle of life is just exactly the kind of program that will find its way into any culture at any level.
Yeah, Roger, it was kind of interesting that when I ventured out, and as I go home back to India and also other countries that I visit, I've been to Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, all the places that you're mentioning, and I have friends and acquaintances in many of these parts of the world, including European countries, like people in Scotland, Ireland. And what I found out very fascinating is that there's a huge number of programs. I mean, coaching programs, and I mean, coaching programs are there. There are programs based on self care like yoga and all the various yogic systems, and there are so many of them. Or if you look at Tai Chi, then I see a more predominance of Kung Fu and little heavier type of martial arts and
She
that
had she hard.
the little jihad, yeah, that type of thing people love and people talk about this and that's what they do. But what's interesting to me, and it's been for about 6 or 7 years that I've been visiting India every year and some of these other countries. What's fascinating to me is that two points are very interesting. One is they don't have the connection and the root into the actually the where the whole Tai Chi came from and all the hard stuff that came from, which you and I, QTC, and we have been rooted into that form, like Tai Chi Easy form, for example. And then from there you took over to get the self-care part of it in the circle of life. And that to me was very powerful because it's simple, it's easy, it's very effective, and it yields a result right away without getting into too much of the form or getting into too much of development of that kung fu style, etc. The second part that was very fascinating to me is the fact that the process of coaching has been extremely simplified, step by step. And the way it's simplified is, you go over these 6 phases, and it's just that. And and the phases once you go through, and when you go through this step at a time, if things are not in order, how do you turn around and redo it? How do you do it in a small step? I mean, it is so beautifully orchestrated that you call it a fail safe. We call it a fail safe type of process. So it's very simple and it's easy to follow. And that to me is a huge difference that even all these people who have gone through many coaching courses, and I talked to a lot of people abroad, and they shake their head and said, this it's complex. I can do this, and they feel good about doing some big stuff. But to have a simplified, easy to follow process, which is reproducible, which is duplicatable by people and very easy to learn and follow, that is a huge thing. That's what I've been finding.
Yeah, and when we think about it, I won't mention any particular coaching methodologies, but if the process is, shall we say, woven in with a beautiful esoteric or complex psychosocial system, it really starts to lock people out of the professional coaching role because they have to become familiar with a complex or esoteric system, and then they have to apply a coaching methodology to that system. Whereas the Circle of Life was basically developed in the first place for a worldwide high magnitude effect on every level of culture, which means that even the coaches themselves are not necessarily, shall we say, highly educated people. A person who is a mechanic or a librarian or a carpenter could as easily be a coach. And what we've experienced is often is even a better coach than someone with a lot of, shall we say, graduate degrees who are, kind of tangled up in all of the intellectual orientation that they have, which is not to say that there's anything wrong with being oriented to complex systems or esoteric systems or academic systems. It's just that our intent is much more broadly, shall we say, our intention is broad to reach every level of society and every age. I mean, once a person is like 7 or 8 years old, we're already asking them, what do you want to do when you grow up? And how do you want to make that happen? And the circle of life can be, shall we say, tailored to children. And we've trained people who do the circle of life in schools. We train people who do the circle of life in universities. We've trained people who do the circle of life in the military. The military being generally a kind of conservative, just give it to me straight and apply it right now, rather than, teach me about philosophical systems that I'm not even interested in. So the point is, and of course, this is a bias that I have, that the circle of life was purposely developed to be mobilized at every level of society, at every age, at every educational level. And so it's been really exciting over these
Yeah.
years to make that happen.
I have a couple of points to make here, which is I think that these are very powerful attributes of the system, and I'm gonna share with you two big quotes from one is from Mahatma Gandhi, and he makes a statement: "Be the change that you want to see in the world.
Mm.
If you be the change." In other words, this whole system is based on the fact that a coach, even though we become a coach, that's fine. Can I use it on myself to change, bring about the change that I need to see it outside? That to me, the self, the center of the circle, the self, that is exactly what Gandhi was saying. It's exactly what he's saying. And so the center, when the center becomes powerful, it opens up the entire area of the life that is actually being affected. So that's one. The second one is like almost like a story, and I'm going to share the story with you. I'm sure many people have heard this story. But there was a little boy. He was, kind of playing around and won't allow his father to do his work, and so he's bothering him. And his father says, "Well, I tell you what, I see this map of the world right there. So let me do this." So he cut the map into like 4 or 5 pieces, and he gave to him. So well, just put it back together like a puzzle, put it back together. And so he and no sooner. I mean, there was like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. The boy brought it back, say, "Papa, Dad, this is done." And he was so amazed. I said, "How did you do that? These are so many countries." And I said, "No, no, 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 Dad. There's a man in the back. I just put the man back together, and the world came together." Now that is a powerful message right there. So you fix the man, fix the world. And
Mm.
so we have these things are actually in operation with our system.
Yeah, well, I am very excited about it, and I know you are too. And so off we go to our international networking process. And thank you, Kalend, for hosting these little videos and
Thank you
trip.
for being with us. Thank you.
Wish you